The solo economy is absolutely booming. Millions of us are out there building businesses on our own terms. But there's a catch, isn't there? A couple of hidden costs are quietly eating into our profits, and they're making it much harder than it should be to actually get ahead. In this explainer, we're going to uncover exactly what those costs are, and more importantly, show you how to fight back.
Right, let's start with the scale, because it is staggering. We are talking about a $250 billion global market. And that's just the creator economy, which, according to the 2025 Creator Earnings Report, is a huge and growing slice of the independent workforce.
But with all that money flowing through the system, it raises a really crucial question. Are independent professionals, are we actually earning more? As you're about to see, the massive opportunity we hear about doesn't always line up with the reality on the ground.
So, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll get a handle on the sheer scale of this new economy. Then, we're going to dive deep into two hidden threats that I'm calling the SaaS tax and the burnout premium. And finally, and this is the important part, we'll lay out a new way to operate and a strategic action plan that you can start using this week.
Okay, first up, the scale of the solo economy. It's so important to really grasp that this is no longer about side hustles. This has become a fundamental pillar of the entire global workforce. Just look at these numbers from the 2025 Global Solo Economy Report. We're talking 1.57 billion people working for themselves around the world. That is nearly half of the entire global workforce. And for most, this isn't some temporary gig. A full 63% say they're doing this as a deliberate, intentional career choice.
All right, so now that we've seen the opportunity, let's get into the first major threat. We're calling it the hidden SaaS tax. And it's this relentless, often invisible force that's just eroding your bottom line.
Okay, this is where the problem really snaps into focus. Data from the Verte's 2025 SaaS Inflation Index shows that the cost of software, the very tools we all rely on, is going up by 12.2% every year. Now compare that to regular consumer inflation, which is sitting at 2.7%. That means your core business costs are skyrocketing at more than 4 times the normal rate. And let's be clear, this is not happening by accident. It is a deliberate strategy. A 2025 analysis from SaaStr puts it bluntly. For a lot of these software companies, it's just easier to make more money by raising prices on their existing customers than it is to go out and find new ones.
And it's not always about those obvious price hikes either. There's a much more subtle tactic at play called SaaS shrinkflation. This is where vendors quietly pull features out of your plan, or maybe they add new usage limits, essentially forcing you to upgrade just to keep the functionality you already had. Our analysis suggests this now affects nearly a third of all SaaS contracts out there.
Now for the second hidden cost, this one isn't financial, it's human. We call it the burnout premium. And it is the very real price that solo operators are paying for working inside a system that constantly pushes them to their absolute limits.
And the numbers, well, they're pretty alarming. According to the 2025 Global Freelance Burnout Index, a staggering 71% of independent professionals are reporting symptoms of burnout. Think about that. This isn't just a few people having a tough week, this is a systemic problem.
The data also points to a major culprit. That very same study found that freelancers who rely heavily on platforms to find work report burnout 43% more often than those who work with direct clients. We're calling this gap the platform burnout premium. It's the hidden cost of being dependent on algorithms and marketplaces to run your business. So, having diagnosed the problems, it's time to talk about the solution. And it requires a pretty fundamental shift in our mindset. We need to move away from being a reactive solo hustler and start operating like a strategic solo enterprise. At its core, the idea is actually quite simple. The goal is to take back control over your business, your tools, your finances, your time, while simultaneously making sure you're not dangerously dependent on any single client or platform for your income.
This matrix is a great way to map out the journey. A lot of us start in that top left quadrant as the operator. High client dependency, very little control. That's the real burnout zone. From there, maybe you become a high-value specialist, but you're still reliant on just a few clients. Or maybe you're a creator with a big audience, but not much operational control. The goal for all of us is to move to that bottom right, the enterprise. That's where you have high control and low dependency. That's a sustainable, profitable business. Just take a second and think about it. Where are you sitting on this grid right now?
Okay, so how do you actually get to that enterprise quadrant? Let's get practical. Here are 4 strategic moves that you can make starting this week to begin taking back control. Now, notice how each of these directly counters one of the threats we just talked about. First, you audit your tech to fight back against that 12.2% SaaS tax. Second, you build direct channels, like your own email list, to lower that 43% burnout premium. Third, you implement value pricing, so your income isn't tied to the hours you work. And fourth, you master your compliance to improve your cash flow.
And here's a really concrete example of what mastering compliance actually looks like. This isn't some generic advice. These are the actual official home office deduction rates for the 2024-2025 tax year in several key regions. Simply knowing these specific numbers for where you live is a direct, practical way to improve your cash flow.
And all of this brings us to the key takeaway. Success in today's solo economy is not about being the busiest person. It's about being the most strategic operator, the one who truly understands these hidden forces and actively takes control.
So we'll leave you with one final question to think about. You've seen the threats and you've seen the strategy. What is the one operational change you are going to make this week to start building your own solo enterprise?